could be one of mine. But, your mother.
All right, well, welcome to the
But
Fallon County Democrats presentation on August 27th. My name is Nancy Stephanz, and I'm going to be talking about home sharing and a specific company that I want to lure to Fallon County to help us do this in a safe and comprehensive manner. So, first of all, what is home sharing? The definition for home sharing is you rent a bedroom in your house, the house you are living in, to someone you are not related to. So you are expected to take care of your family members. They're not supposed to count. This has to be someone you are not related to meet the strict definition of home sharing. You then share public spaces in the house, and including your yard, your driveway, your bathroom, maybe your kitchen, definitely your living room, with this person you're renting the space to. That's what home sharing is. Well, why do it? Let's talk about that for a little bit. As everyone knows, since the pandemic, rents and mortgage prices have shot through the roof. And the increases, cost of living increases that have gone along with Social Security checks have not begun to keep track and keep up with that. So a lot of people, especially more mature individuals and very young people who are just starting out in life, cannot afford rents or mortgages. But did you know that there are 44 million empty bedrooms in the USA? This came from an article on books.net on February 24th, and the title of the article was Why Americans Are Moving In with Strangers Twice Their Age. Well, that's because the strangers who are twice their age own the homes that have empty bedrooms, and the younger people or people still in the homeowners age group who can't afford anything else are now starting to live together. The fastest growing group of homeless people in the US today is women over the age of 60. And it's not just in the US, it's true here as well. My husband, Dr. Gerald Stephanz, is the medical director for the volunteer clinic here in town. And before the pandemic, it was rare if he saw people over the age of 50 at Serenity House. He goes out there every Wednesday night, and he's there tonight conducting a medical clinic. Since the eviction moratoriums expired 2 years ago, most of the new people who he calls rookie homeless, because they've never experienced this before, are single women over 60. So many of them are divorced or widows. And again, their Social Security checks, if they even get one, have not kept up with the increase in rents. They've spent their most productive working years probably being caregivers and home givers in their own homes. Back in the 60s and 70s, women were kind of actively discouraged from working in the first place. If they did work, their pay was much less than men. I remember when I was 14 and I got my first job, it was 1974. I was fussing tables in a restaurant. I was paid $1.25 an hour. So if you have that kind of income, your Social Security check, even if you work long enough to get one, is going to be very small. You have to work 10 years total, or 40 quarters is what Social Security calls it, to get a check from them in the first place, or be married to someone who has worked 10 years or 40 quarters. So again, these women especially never had much personal income, and now they're finding out just how small their Social Security checks are. I also work as a volunteer for SHEBA, that stands for Statewide Health Insurance Beneficiaries Advisors. It was a program started in Washington State about 26 years ago, and it trains volunteers to counsel people about their Medicare options and to screen people for Medicaid. So I did not personally work with this lady, but one of my colleagues met a woman whose Social Security check is $235 a month, and that's all she has to live on. So thank God, one of her friends had already taken her into her home. We were able to get her signed up for Medicaid and food assistance so she can actually survive. But that's the kind of income we're talking about in a lot of cases. Also, about 8 weeks ago, President Trump, by executive order, signed an order to stop utility assistance. So I'm afraid there's going to be a whole nother raft of homeless people coming on the streets soon if that goes through. And according to a Justice and Aging email I got on May 8th, the HUD that administers the Federal Rental Assistance Program says that 42% of those recipients are now age 62 or older. And the funding for that program was so small to start with, only about a third of the people who are qualified to get it can get any help from it. So if rental assistance and utility assistance are eliminated by the federal government, there's going to be another tsunami of homelessness. It's not just the elderly who cannot keep a roof over their heads, especially in this county where the average wage is about 2/3 what it is in King County. The Coast Guard. I mean, who could have a better renter than the Coast Guard? They have trouble finding places for their people to live, out-of-town Peninsula College students. This population was brought to my attention by Volunteer Hospice because some of their volunteers also volunteer for Mosaic. And they work with the developmentally delayed adults who are now living in their parents' homes. But what's going to happen to them when their parents die? They can't cognitively manage things themselves. And the state legislature this past session closed to new admissions, the only institution I'm aware of in the state where they could be admitted. So what's going to happen to them? And then just our workforce. You know, everybody who waits on tables and works for nonprofits and police and firefighters, everybody is having trouble finding a place to live that they can afford. So on the health side of things, I'm a retired physician. If you remember back to your pyramid of needs, you had that somewhere in high school, maybe even middle school. The first one is water, right? The second one is food. What's the third one? Shelter. So I look at this not just as a social issue, but as a survival issue. And again, my husband works with homeless people every week. And especially in the winter when it's so wet, people's feet are breaking down. They have terrible wounds. It's hard to get them to heal. If you have a dry place to live, all of that gets better. Plus, mentally, what happens if you're alone too long? You get lonely, you get trapped, ruminating in your own thoughts. It's really easy to get depressed. It's really easy to get suicidal, especially if drugs or alcohol are involved and you're seeking them as an escape. So living alone too long is not good for anybody. Plus, if you start having trouble with your hearing, are you going to realize it? You just keep turning up that TV remote, right? And if you develop cognitive trouble and you can't remember what a bill is when it comes in the mail, you could lose your house because you just forget to pay your mortgage payment because you don't remember what that is anymore. So if you had a housemate, they can help with all of these problems. And if you get sick or injured, they can call for help. They can water your plants if you go out of town. They can save you kennel fees if they watch your dog while you go out of town. That alone should motivate some people to think about this. Any kind of social engagement will improve your quality of life. So I started going to the Housing Solutions Committee meetings, which are the first Friday of each month at 9 o'clock in the county courthouse in the county commissioner's room. Anybody is welcome to join that, either on Zoom or in person, and I've learned a lot from that. I wanted to understand why it is so hard to get affordable housing here. And there's lots of rules and there's lots of regulations, and the city is trying hard to simplify them and speed up that process. But it's going to take time to get new housing built. And right now, if they use any government money, they have to pay something called a prevailing wage for the work that is done. And the prevailing wage is not based on average wages here. It's based on something much higher than what we would normally pay. So it makes everything horribly expensive, very difficult to do. So about 5 years ago, during the pandemic, I saw this story on the PBS NewsHour, and it's easy to find. If you just go to YouTube, type in PBS NewsHour home share, it will pop right up. But it was a story of a company that was starting up in Boston at that time, matching graduate students with mature homeowners because they were both low-income groups. It helped with loneliness, it helped with the cost of housing, and they also encouraged the renters to exchange work around the place for less rental payment. And this is a fantastic idea. So there is a name for that company now. It's called Nesterly, and we're going to get back to that in a minute. But that's where I first heard about them. I think home sharing makes a lot of sense if it's done with integrity and compassion and a very comprehensive plan that makes people safe to use it. And that's what I've had trouble finding until I found this company, Nesterly. So when I first started asking questions about this, our commissioner, Randy Johnson, told me about Silver Nest. So did one of the people through O3A. Sheba, the program I volunteer for, is administered through O3A. And they thought this company, Silver Nest, was still here. So Silver Nest is a home sharing company. And they have a website that is still up and active. But when you try to contact them by phone or email or chat,
We lost your sound.
I think, did you maybe press the power button on the bottom?
hello, hello,
There. Back.
hello, yes. When you try to contact Silver Nest by phone or email or chat, you get no response. So finally I got smart and I asked my phone, I said, hey Siri, because I have an iPhone. Hey Siri, did somebody buy Silver Nest? And Siri said, yes, Silver Nest was bought in 2022. So it works somewhere, but it does not work here. So the Seattle Times had an article on January 26th that mentioned these two companies, spareroom.com and Sunshine Homeshare Colorado. The last one only operates in the Metro Denver area. And there are lots of things you can find like that that are restricted to a very small geographic area. Spareroom.com was started in the UK in 2003. They say they cover the whole US, but it's basically just like an eBay shopping site for places you might want to rent. You have to get your own pictures up there and you just decide what you want and then you go make your own contacts, and there's no background checks, there's no contracts, there's no support for the people in the program at all. So I don't think that would work here. I wouldn't use it. However, Nesterly is a different story. Again, they are committed to trying to make this a safe and comprehensive process, a one-stop shop for everything you would be worried about. And this is what I like about them. They require 2 letters of reference for both the homeowner and the potential renters, and they call those references. So you can't just have some AI app make something up about you to make you sound golden. Okay, they're going to call and check. They also do a very comprehensive background check. It's a 4-step thing through a company called Checker International. So it's a criminal background check, sex offender check, frequent address change check. They verify your social security number. So they try to do everything they can to make sure you are who you say you are and that you're a safe person to live with. They provide the contracts. They have a one-time fee that varies between $95 and $195 at the time that the contract is signed, when a match is made between a homeowner and a renter, and that is charged to the renter. I think the variability depends on what the rent is going to be. And then they keep 2.5% of the monthly rent after that. They also require you to use their financial system. So they know the homeowner's bank information, they know the renter's bank information. 3 days before the end of the month, they take the money out of the renter's account, they keep their 2.5%, and they deposit the rest on the first day of the next month into the homeowner's account. So you don't have to mess with that. They also have actual human beings who will call their clients every month to make sure things are going okay. They will help with dispute resolution. They will do income verification if requested by the homeowner. And again, they still encourage renters to exchange some level of work around the place for a reduction in rent. And they basically suggest a minimum wage kind of thing there. So if you were going to help mow the lawn and do some cooking and cleaning, and you figured it would be about 10 hours a month, then they would suggest that the rent be decreased by $150 a month, which makes a lot of sense to me. They also, and I like this too, they do not require first month rent, last month rent, and security deposit like so many people and companies do. And Mary Budke, the Boys and Girls Club, when I was talking to her about this, said, I can pay my people enough to actually pay the rent for an apartment, but they can't save up enough cash to get into one. So that would be a big help to a lot of people. The host can request any of those. They have to add it to the contract if they want it. They do not require renter's insurance. They do recommend it. And I would say homeowners really should have what is called home share insurance, just as extra protection for them. In this state, that is called a room rental rider. So before they get interested in us, they do want us to have a list of 50 potential home share hosts. It'll be easy to find renters. What I need are 50 people willing to be home share hosts. And I have a nice little sign-up sheet if anyone's interested. I have 23 names on there. And I've done 9 public talks. When I first contacted them, and they get back to you within 24 hours when you email them, by the way, nesterly.com, go to their site, check it out. Email them if you want to. When I first contacted them in February, the farthest, darn it, the farthest west they were was Nashville. Because I didn't call them, I emailed them, I said, are you in Washington State yet? And they said, no. But, you know, get this for us, and a partner agency and 50 hosts. But they cover the entire state of Maine, so their partner agency there must be something through their legislature, I'm guessing. They cover Poughkeepsie County in New York State, otherwise they're in several different cities. And about 6 weeks ago, they started in Bellingham. So I was very excited about that. I thought we can still be the farthest west outpost if we get our act together, you know? Home sharing provides extra benefits besides just some money. And the companionship of having someone there and someone to help keep you safe, and just all the other things we already talked about. I worry about the people who are left behind when their spouse or partner dies. That's my chief focus here. Widowed people, or people who have recently been divorced and now they have to make it on one income. I think a lot of people, especially women again, if their husband has been the one managing the finances, they have no idea really what their financial situation is until he's been dead for several months. And then I think for a lot of them, it comes as a major shock. I talked to one lady who is a real estate agent and works as a caregiver, and she still can't pay her mortgage unless she finds somebody who is willing to rent a bedroom in her house for $900 a month. That's how much extra money she has to have to keep her house. This is not uncommon. So a lot of people could benefit from this. It can allow you to stay in your house as long as you want to. And I want to stay in my house as long as I can. I think most people do. I love my house. I don't want to have to leave it, but I certainly understand if people can't make their property tax payments, which we all know go up every year because we don't have income tax in this state. Or if you can't make your mortgage, you're not going to be able to keep your house. And then of course you have to keep the house maintained or it'll fall apart on you. So just a few extra $100 a month. That's all I'm asking people to think about. I don't want the people who are on Facebook rental groups who are trying to charge anywhere from $1,200 to $1,800 a month for a bedroom. I've seen those prices. That doesn't help anybody. I want some angels who are willing to do this for a price people who live here can afford. Plus, somebody who's new, doesn't have to be younger, anybody different is going to give you new ideas, can give you help with technology. If your internet goes down, a younger person can fix it like that. Instead of, it took us, 15 minutes to figure out how to get this talk to appear on Zoom, didn't it, Ellen?
Did
If
it,
we'd had a 5th grader in here, it would have taken about 30 seconds.
exactly.
Yeah, so, and you can teach those people something So I think back to when my husband and I had just moved back to Kansas. He had a 3-year-old from his prior marriage who was going to be living with us. We were both practicing physicians. We knew we needed a nanny who would be a live-in person. And so we advertised and we got lucky and found a retired school teacher. And that woman was worth her weight in gold. And she's the one who figured out that Sam was colorblind, because she was trying to teach him his colors and he couldn't tell red, orange, and green apart. So if I was a single parent of a single parent family, I would be looking for a retired school teacher and beg them to come and live with me. Then I could go back to work And that would help the whole county goal of the Recompete project, which is to try to get 1,000 people who are not working now back into the workforce in the next 5 years. So this would be one way that multi-generational sharing could help not just the mature individual, but the younger people as well. So again, for Collin County, if we can free up some apartments, that gives new people who want to move here somewhere to live. It would encourage new companies to come here that hopefully would pay higher wages. Our tax increases would go up, and property tax being utilized better, and we'd have a nice virtuous, not vicious, a virtuous cycle of everything improving. So if you are willing to become a home sharing host, if you're here, you can sign up on my sign up sheet right now. I don't ask you to be willing to do this in the next month or two. We don't have Nesterly here yet. We are working on that. We are trying to come up with a collaboration between the United Way and our Housing Resource Center and anybody else we can get who will commit a few $1,000s to the cause to be our sponsoring agency or our collaboration sponsoring agencies. But until we have that, they won't come. However, I'm still working on my list of names, and I have 23 right now. If you're online and you're interested in the next year, next 2 years, whenever you want, just put your timeline down for me and give me your name and phone number, and of course your email at cchomesharehosts@gmail.com. That stands for Collin County Home Share Hosts. And there's an S at the end of that hosts word because it's plural. So cchomesharehosts@gmail.com, and we'll get you on the list and we'll see if we can get them to come. If we can't, there's another option I heard about from a lady who used to work in Baltimore, in this county in Maryland. And she sent me this article from, it was the early 80s, Washington Post. And they have actually used home sharing as part of their senior housing plans for almost, well, since 1978, however many years that is. They have about 30 people who do it just serially. When one person moves out, they get another one who comes in. This is a very rich county. Over 1 million people live there. They have 20 different senior housing villages, they call them, with lots of amenities and all that kind of stuff. But there's still about 30 people who like to do this. They enjoy this. So especially if you're someone who has ever been, hosted an exchange student or something, I think this kind of program would really appeal to you and give you a lot of interest in life as you continue to mature. The service for them is free, but that county pays 2 full-time counselors to kind of do the matchmaking and help people with the applications and all that kind of stuff. And then they still have this lady who runs it. So that would be 3 full-time employees we'd have to pay, as opposed to a contract with Nesterly. And just based on the cost I saw for the program that Bellington ended up with, it was published in the Cascadia newspaper about the end of June. Bellingham has enlisted their services for 2 years for $55,000. And I don't think that's an insurmountable amount of money. I think we can come up with that. And our cost would probably be less because Bellingham is a city of 95,000. If we did it for Collin County, we're about 75,000, right? Should be cheaper for us. If we can get Jefferson County in, I'd love to have their partnership as well, or anybody else who's interested. Love to have the whole state of Washington.
Have you tried getting a hold of Jefferson County Dems?
I have not talked to the Dems in Jefferson County. I reached out to all 3 commissioners because Randy says 2 of them are very interested, but they have not gotten back to me.
I'm sure the Dems would let you talk. I think probably Collin County is more likely to be interested in this. Just a little I know about Jefferson, it's the makeup is a little bit different, but yeah, there's this to me is just great. I was really interested. I'm unhappy there's not more people here tonight.
Well, it's Black Diamond Junction.
I know.
I can always come back.
What in the world is happening?
It's Black
downtown?
Diamond Junction.
But you had given a speech somewhere else and there was an article right up in the newspaper.
Yeah, that was Chamber of Commerce on the 13th.
Yeah, and so.
And I'll be on Coffee with Colleen on September 3rd, and that'll be recorded too. So if anybody wants to get up at 8 o'clock, they can watch it live, or they can watch it later on the recording. So pass the news around, get people talking about this, have them send me their names.
Well, the college here,
that would be
because
great.
there is a college. And people do come from other areas. I know that one of our friends, her two sons came here and started like the community college level here and then transferred to another school.
Yeah,
But they were coming from Alaska and, someone like that, I don't know what kind of student housing, if they even have it up at the college. But, that's kind of one of those things that to me sounds like a really good deal.
and I reached out to a lady there who supposedly is in charge of it. Ann is her first name. I can't remember her last name. And I asked her, how many students do you have that are from out of town who might benefit from this? And she wouldn't give me a number. She just said, well, it fluctuates, and she didn't seem very interested.
Where I doubt it's a state secret, but
So I need, I need somebody else to
yeah.
help me with them. Yeah.
This isn't being like put out over Zoom or anything, is it?
It is,
Good,
so,
good.
and we're recording, so I don't know, you still have more slides, right?
Oh, that's basically it.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. What
Since
other questions do you
14 or
have?
16.
I have a question, with regard to that Nesterly.
Mhm.
All right, say there's 3 applicants for one, say, room, same
Mhm.
house.
Mhm.
Who picks the applicant?
The homeowner.
I see.
So the Nesterly feeds one person at a time to the homeowner as they clear their process. They give you 4 days to respond to that applicant. If you don't respond to that applicant in 4 days, they assume you do not want them and they will put another person in their place. So they expect you to be on top of this and responsive and talking to these people.
All right, and so you were pretty clear on 15 to 1,800 a month in this area is too much.
Mhm.
What is the right number or close to that?
And again, that's gonna be something you would have to negotiate. So number one, it would start out with what you need. Like this one woman I mentioned, she has to have $900 a month to keep her house. So that's her baseline number. She has to have that,
I mean, over and above what she already brings in.
yeah,
I
which is
see.
just her social security check and whatever she earns from caregiving and, not much. Her husband was a veteran, but his pension, of course, went away when he died. Before that, she was okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm basically the poster boy for home sharing, because I'm alone in an 8-bedroom house.
Oh my
Uh-huh.
gosh.
Yeah,
Have
And-
been for years.
yeah, and Nesterly, you can rent more than one room. They also allow renters to sublet if their landlord gives them a written statement saying that's okay. So someone who is renting a 3-bedroom house, would be allowed to rent a bedroom if their landlord says it's okay. So they're very flexible.
Well, that's good. I'm a real estate professional and have been for over 50 years
Mhm.
and very leery of rentals.
Yeah.
Really don't like them. And
Everybody is. And so that's what I'm trying to address now is this fear of the bad tenant. But I think again, with Nesterly's program, if you can get past those 2 letters of reference and all those background checks, that's gonna eliminate a whole lot of bad actors.
yeah, that's clearly probably a good concept. I'm
Yeah.
too damn lazy to do it. And I've lived long enough to see that no matter how good the contract, somebody's always can break it,
Yeah.
and then even if you win because they broke it, you still have to collect.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, it becomes monumental in terms
Yeah.
of, success.
Yeah.
Or monumental problems.
Yeah, and I sat down with a lawyer yesterday to get a better handle myself on what the current eviction process is here. And it's very, very difficult.
Oh, boy.
So he told me about protection orders, but as I heard today from a talk I was doing this morning from the lady who runs Healthy Families, and also from the lawyer I talked to yesterday, unless there's blood on the floor, even if you have a protection order, the sheriff won't haul those people out. So I'm trying to set up a meeting with Adam Birnbaum, and I'm going to bring these concerns to his attention. Because this past session, the legislature did try to make it easier for people to home share. And they say now, if you're truly sharing a public part of the house with your renter, all you need is a 20-day written notice and they have to go. Well, how do you enforce that? And that's my question. How do you
Do
make
you
them
have to have
go?
cause or can it be just?
No.
I've decided I'm not gonna let you stay here. I'm gonna rent it to someone else the next.
Yeah,
day."
yeah.
Okay.
So let
So,
me interrupt and tell you, everybody that's here, that, when you have a problem and it requires somebody else to intervene, typically you would call who? The police. Well, their stock response, and depending on you're in the city or the county, city police or sheriff, they're gonna say, oh, well, this is a civil matter.
It's a
right,
matter.
exactly.
And
Unless
it
you're
may not be a
assaulted.
Civil matter.
Unless you're
If
assaulted.
you're fearing for your life, or the guy threatened you and there's
Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
it's not on tape, it's not a civil matter at all.
yeah,
And you try and tell somebody that and they don't want to be bothered.
yeah,
So there is a huge, huge handicap for this program, because people like me who have a lot of experience, they don't want to shoot
Right.
somebody or get shot.
right,
Not worth it.
right,
I don't care how much money you're making,
Right.
if anything. It isn't easy to do.
yeah. So this book, can you see this on the screen?
You're holding it up. If you can, I can't zoom in, but it's called
Tell me where you can see it.
sharing how, yes, it's right there.
So this book was recommended to me by a lady who now works for Ole Cap and Squim, but she worked for the housing department in Baltimore for many years. And she said, anybody who is thinking about home sharing needs to read this book. It costs about $25. You can get it from Amazon or Book and News, but it has lots of practical advice. The lady who wrote this was 38 years old when she published it in 2012, and that was before we had all these apps and things, right? So she just used Craigslist to find people to share homes with her, and she would intentionally buy a house with like 4 bedrooms. She'd have one, and she'd recruit 3 other people to live in it with her and pay her mortgage. And so she has a lot of practical advice. And the thing she says is most important is to have a must-have and a can't live with list and be extremely detailed. And I would say those things need to go in your contract. And then it was a 4-step process, basically, with her before she would accept someone as a home sharing person. She'd put the ad in Craigslist with only her phone number and a description of where she lived in terms of what was on offer and if it was on a bus line, that kind of thing. So the first contact was over the phone, make sure you can understand the people and they don't sound crazy. The second would be meet them in a public place, go over your must-have and your can't live with lists. And those 2 things right there are gonna, listen to your gut. They're gonna tell you a lot. And if those people make you uneasy, just say, no, this is not gonna work. The third would be you show them the space in your house. That's the first time they see where you live. And you go again through the list. And the fourth was a trial period of about a week to see if you could live together. And only after that, would she commit to having them in the house for long term. And one of her house rules was no TV. And she still got people, she got 21 people to live with her under those conditions. Between age 20 and 38.
You were talking about, doing, like work for somebody for a lower rent. I
Mhm.
would be careful with that. I labor and, if there's a clear quid pro quo, rent reduction, 15 hours for work,
Mhm.
you could, and again, it's getting caught, a lot of it, but if you want to be sure you're not in trouble, I would check it out, because you could be then responsible for
Yeah.
tax withholding,
Injuries?
all the deductions, that are required, workers' comp, all that kind of stuff. You'd end up being an employer of that person.
Yep.
You, and again, not recommending it, but you could probably get away with it easier, just sort of doing it. It's unofficial if you do this, but if, if people that want things tied down, which I frequently am that person that wants all the,
Mhm.
it all spelled out. You're gonna get yourself in a situation where you say, for $15, you will do this, I will pay you, it will reduce, and then you've got yourself a paper trail that if somebody leaves and they're mad, can come back and maybe get you. If you do it loosey-goosey and come in and say, well, we'll just, reduce the rent right now, and you say you'll help me, then there's no paper trail, you can get away with it a little bit easier.
But they don't help.
But yeah, then you don't have these assurances of, you know,
Or
it's
they
in
do
writing
what?
and everything's clear, you know, but. People don't often, I mean, I took a seminar one time that was done by people that have been doing the seminar forever. And they got into this same kind of a situation. Well, you know, you do this and you pay him, you know, and I went, wait a minute, you're talking labor law. And people get away with it for years and they have some really bad, you know, situations and never get feedback or never get sued or never, but man, you get yourself into one of those times when somebody does come after you, it's a headache and it's a mess. And you can end up with like owing somebody 3 times their wages because you didn't pay them soon enough and all that kind of stuff. It's just crazy. So I would be a little bit cautious and say, if you're going to do that, just talk to somebody. Because whether you have to pay an attorney or you have a friend or something, most people do some checking if they're gonna get into this. I have, well, my sister lived with one of her friends, and they did the house share for a number of years. But they knew each other from high school,
Mhm.
elementary school, you know, so those are the kind that work out really good.
Right.
My grandson did house sharing, with like a larger apartment in Bellevue. Actually, it was not Bellevue, it was outside Issaquah. And it worked out also because it was kids and they were all about the same age. So when they didn't clean and didn't do the things that older people like, it was sort of okay, you know, that there was not the conflicts there. But it did, there was a couple of times when somebody moved out and then there was a quibble over that. The landlord was concerned about people moving in and out without them knowing who it was and
Right.
having their signature, because it was a rental, which wouldn't be true if it was your own home that you owned.
Mhm.
But, you know, I look at this and we have problems here getting people moving here because there's no
Mhm.
rental, no
Mhm.
housing to buy, beg, borrow, steal, you know. That's true throughout the state of Washington.
Mhm.
And so this kind of an idea, I'm going, yeah, there's a lot of concerns, you know, and my parents had apartments, they had 20 units. And we had great tenants that lasted forever, were the most wonderful people, and we had people that just were major.
Thank you.
You know, it's like,
And the new ones that were really bad did a lot of damage.
oh God, yeah, there was somebody that they had a fire in the kitchen, didn't tell us, they just gave her notice they were moving, you know, and so they're leaving and mom and dad walks in and it's like the kitchen has, they obviously didn't even call the fire department, it was next door, they would have seen the fire truck show up. So they must have had something where they managed to put it out. But it was like the stove was engulfed, the wall was engulfed, the overhead, you know. The stuff you could, anybody that's had apartments or rentals, you know,
Yeah.
can tell you these horror stories. But at the same time,
And
you
they're,
know,
and they're afraid to try again, and I
no,
totally
you know,
get it.
I sort of came out of it because my husband and I, when we were just married and out of school, we managed the apartments for my parents for a while. I said it was every Saturday and Sunday, I was having to repaint an apartment that somebody moved out of, you know. It's like, this is not fun. But there is a lot of that happens, you know. But at the same time, like I said, it was a service, where we were, the Coast Guard loved us,
Mhm.
you know, because it was.
And they always paid their rent.
Oh, yeah, the coasties pay their rent because if they don't, you call up their.
That's all you have to do.
Officer and then they're in there the next day paying.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was the apartments, my dad, they were very small, very plain, 2 and 3 bedroom places. But it was just like, it was really great.
Mhm.
And like I said, there was a lot of positive to it. My parents got some income, usually on a pretty regular basis.
Mhm.
Had to go to court a couple of times, carried some people, I think out of the goodness of their heart and ended up never getting it back. But, you know, like I say, it can be very, very rewarding to do that. As long as you're compatible, having somebody
Right.
in a piece of your house, even that can work.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think this is a great idea. I think
I just don't know what else we can do.
I know, we have to come up with, it's like, what about this? What about this? Can you do that? You know, we put a mother-in-law unit on our property and we've got several that have been built in our neighborhood as the new places come up and stuff.
Mhm.
You know, that's only one way of doing it, but, you know, there has to be some way of getting around the horrendous expense of buying a first-time home. You know, I look and I go, we came here 10 years ago. I wouldn't want to buy my property today for what it's worth.
Yeah, I
And,
wouldn't.
I mean,
I just
because
wouldn't.
it's just increased the whole time, and that happened when we were in Bellevue. You know, we came in and I had sticker shock coming from Alaska, where everything's always more expensive, coming into Bellevue and buying a house. And then, you know, 10 years later, 15 years later, whatever it was like, oh my God, I couldn't have afforded this house.
Yeah.
How can anybody afford this house?
Yeah.
And
So
so there has to be something, and hopefully it's not where, because you've had people that bought houses in the last 5 years. Hopefully it's not a crash in the market where everybody is being evicted, because we went through that in Alaska too.
I have a
And
question. too.
neighborhoods,
Mhm.
you know, where every other house is.
But,
So, you need 50 people,
mhm.
and then what are the next steps? What can we do from that point
So,
on?
so Sharon Maggard from the Housing Resource Center, and she manages Serenity House. And Christy Smith from United Way and I sat down a couple weeks ago and we sent out a joint email to Nesterly to ask if United Way and the Housing Resource Center could be an affiliated, collaborative thing. And could we have a phone call to talk with them about what the cost would be for this county? And so we're waiting for their reply. Sharon went on vacation, so I hope we'll hear something back in the next week. But also,
What do you
Danny,
mean by cost for this county?
so the partner agency
Uh-huh.
or agencies have to come up with money up front. Because this is a business.
Okay,
So Bellingham, the city of Bellingham, their contract for 2 years of Nesterly to work on this problem there is $55,000.
Wow.
Ooh,
okay.
But that's not much for 2 years.
maybe not to you.
I don't think that's insurmountable. I think we can get there, and we should not be as expensive because we do not have as many people in this entire county as Bellingham has in their city.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need to know that number,
And that's the cost for them to administer the program.
right? And then
And
the
then
people from
that
the
continues
agencies will
once you
be
have-
volunteers to help find more people, help them sign up, yada, yada, yada.
I think that, what I've heard here, the key to success, in my view, is that third party involvement, whether it's Nesterly or whether it's you working for your parents or whether it's, the Coast Guard, for example. And yeah, I've done business with the Coast Guard and I agree about that. But the key is the third party. Also, you're making a big mistake by assuming houses aren't affordable. It's just money, whether it's 1,000, 100,000, or 1,000,000. It's all reflected in income and interest rates and printing more money, and you can't stop inflation. We'd all like to, but we can't. Whether that's by design or not, I don't want to get into that argument, but the reality is that houses can be bought. And if you can get 4 or 5 people, each paying 1,000, or I don't know the number, 500, 800, somewhere in there,
Mhm.
you know, that adds up pretty quickly. And if they all pay. And so, and interest rates and banks and, I mean, it's easy enough to look at the numbers before you do it, so you can project the cost, expenses, and whether there's anything left over. I mean, that's easy to do. Complicated, but not difficult. And, so if you want to succeed, what I tell people, and I don't get into rentals hardly ever anymore, I hate them. But, when I sell somebody a rental, and they used to be people that want to buy them, they were just for that, which is, I think, where we're going here. The people who would invest in a house that they could rent to 4 or 5 parties, like mine, could be 6 or 8. And, if the numbers work, well, the numbers work. And, I don't know where I'm going with that, but, it's not difficult to make it work. What's difficult is to get the right people.
Right.
And those third parties who can continue to make it happen, who the renter has to, abide by their rules. In other words, that third party that even though you're in the same house, these people have to go through here to get to you with the bank account and you go this way to get to the records. So that is good,
Yeah,
but it raises the cost, but then again, you have a greater chance of success.
so you gave me my next question to email to Nesterly, and that is, what about this issue about labor laws? So I will ask them and we'll see what they say.
Yeah, the county has just changed some rules on the not bed and breakfast, it's,
They're-
Airbnb.
Yeah.
And they have one for people that where the Airbnb is actually in your house. Or maybe like just a little shed out in your backyard. So you probably need to take a look at that also. And that's something that's, I mean, these Airbnb, the laws and stuff regulating them are fairly new also.
Yeah, and they're short-term rentals.
And it's
But-
like, one of the advantages of this is there are people that cannot get into housing for maybe any number of reasons. They cannot buy, it's never gonna work for them. But this is an alternative that could. And it's, to me, a very interesting alternative.
Well, and I think of it more as let's prevent more homelessness.
Yeah.
Let's keep people in their homes as long as they want to by giving them a renter to allow them to stay in their homes.
Yeah.
I don't think this will help the current homeless at all.
No, because they're already.
They
well,
won't-
it
they
might
won't
be
pass the
somebody
screening.
who's the working
Yeah.
that can't, I mean, if you don't have a house for every person who's working and wants to rent a house, which we don't here in the county or in the state, I mean, there's a shortage.
Everyone.
And those people are doubling up somewhere, sleeping on someone's couch or whatever. Now, this is a more formalized and possibly far more workable solution because, it's like, well, I know so-and-so, I can bunk with them for a while versus, hey, there's somebody that really wants me. It's not desperation. I got to have a roof over my head tonight. It's, we'll work out
Yeah,
something.
and we need to reach people before they're at that falling off the knife edge.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to reach out to various communities of faith because I think the clergy could act as the middleman, as the matchmaker between the homeowners in the congregation and the home renters in the congregation. Because we just don't talk about that, right? I mean, I don't know how many of my friends rent versus own because we don't talk about that stuff. But a trusted person, maybe from their church, could help matchmake.
Well, and may also know enough about their parishioner that, to say, you have a big house
Mhm.
and you don't have all those
Mhm,
rooms filled.
mhm. And I think your personalities are compatible. Why don't you talk about it? And I don't see why that couldn't work for two homeowners. Why couldn't two homeowners choose to share the bigger house and then rent the smaller house?
Well, I also think that living there, m- m- predominantly more landlord tenant issues are in situations where they are not, the landlord is not living on the premises.
Right.
You're less likely to have tenant problems if you are living on the premises, like for a duplex, for example, you're there all the time. They're less likely to be trashing your house when you're right there and you can knock on the door and say, no, this is gonna stop now, or you get your 20-day notice. But I do question too, the employee situation. I'm thinking it doesn't apply because there's no wages. There is no monetary compensation. It's just
It's
a
just a reduction
lesser
in rent.
rent that is charged
It's called in
For-
kind.
in kind, but yeah, but I don't think they're
I
paying.
mean, it does,
Yeah.
come under,
Mm.
and again, you don't get caught, so you don't hear about it. And my concern is, if you get caught, it can be a world of hurt. And you may know 50 people that have done this and got away with it for 20 years. And if you are the one that doesn't get away with it, it's devastating. If you've done it for very long, it's really devastating and it's a choice and I'm not in a situation of being the enforcer, you know? And so it's like, when I talk to people, it's like, if you wanna take that risk, that's your problem. But I just feel like you should be aware and not go into it thinking you're doing something that you can get away with, because you can get away with it, but not if you get caught,
Yeah, okay.
so.
Well, that's all I've got so far. And talk to people and reach out to
the
people.
administrative fees, the initial upfront is for to guarantee a 2-year contract, but,
Doesn't have to be 2 years,
or whatever it is, whatever
whatever
you
the contract
sign.
is. Uh-huh.
But there are administrative fees built into the
That's
contract.
probably why they keep the 2.5% of
Okay,
the rent after that. But again, the upfront money from the partner agency probably covers most of that.
okay.
And it's probably gonna have to, in order to get them to come here, it's not just 50 people, but probably an agreement with a church or a government or something.
The
that-
partner agency.
Yeah.
Whatever that is gonna be. Yeah.
I'm just gonna ask if anyone online has any questions.
Okay.
You can put it in the chat or unmute and ask any questions now.
Or reach out to me if your churches, I would love to talk at any church. And I'll just talk to the clergy person first, if that's what they want. I've talked to about 5 so far. I've reached out to another 10 and I haven't heard back from most of them. So I still think if we have to do this ourselves, that's the place to start.
I think so too.
And Peninsula Housing Authority, are they potentially
Well, they're federally funded.
okay,
So again, I mean, they know I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I gave this talk to the Housing Solutions Committee. They're right there. Everybody knows I'm doing this. In local government. Yes, sir.
What are you gonna do? I mean, you have a big heart and you have a clearly a big umbrella, but, all right, so some of the people that I've dealt with, inmates from prisons who've been released,
They
people.
won't pass the screening.
Pardon?
They won't pass the screening.
Okay, but I don't doubt that, but
Mhm.
where do they go?
Serenity House.
And if they're full,
That's where my husband sees them.
well, I'm sure they can't take them all. I go by there all the time. But I don't live that far from that.
Yeah.
There
And-
are people too, that will take that group in. I mean, because there's restaurants that make a point of hiring. They've been a convicted felon, they pulled themselves up, they've got a small restaurant, and they'll hire ex-cons.
Mhm.
I mean, so that's the good thing about this is you've got the freedom and the flexibility to say, you know, it's like me as a senior, no way in hell am I gonna do something like that. But you, as a man who's been in that environment, even if you're married and have kids or whatever, but as a, you know, somebody who's been in that environment and understands and can relate, you may very well be willing to, again, depending on the structure of your house, maybe you've got upstairs, downstairs, they're not gonna be, you know, invading your personal space. It's the flexibility is what interests me.
Well,
And, you
if
know, if
you're-
they take away Social Security from all of us, we'll all go back to having boarding houses because that's what you have to do if you have no income. And so we may be going back to that.
We had one here in Port Angeles and I remember it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but,
But again, there's other people so my husband's volunteer medical clinic is associated with the Rediscovery Program, which he got started, and they now have 30 employees. And most of those employees were formerly homeless people, formerly drug addicted people. So again, there are agencies who reach out to people who have made major mistakes in their lives and are now coming back into the workforce, and they do give them work. So for the ex-cons, I'm sure there are other agencies that do that. I can't tell you what they are because I don't know.
Have you heard of Oxford House? So those are programs, and
Yeah.
Oxford House is for
They're
people
for-
who are re-entering
Yeah.
and they're either recently released from incarceration or some treatment program.
Yeah.
And some of them allow them to have their families with them. And I think there are probably 8 or maybe even up to 10 Oxford houses in the community now. You don't know, they're just
Mhm.
homes in
Mhm.
neighborhoods and,
And they
they-
police themselves.
right. Mhm.
Yeah,
So those are alternative programs. These are just really, I think, for people who are looking for stable housing
Mhm.
and they have some income, but not enough income.
right.
Well, it's an old problem, but if you're a landlord and you have kids, I think there's pretty much zero chance of a sex offender, pedophile, for example, entering to stay in
Oh,
your
yeah, of
home.
course
And I
not.
don't think that's gonna happen.
No, of course not.
And believe me, I've seen that in my real estate business too.
Yeah, and that's one
Very
of the
little
things
privacy.
that's one of the things Nesterly screens for, so those people are not gonna get past their screening process.
And in the chat, Betsy just said Pioneer Community Services in King County assists formerly
Incarcerated,
incarcerated.
okay.
So,
Pioneer,
yeah, that's King County. I think it's Oxford House here
Yeah,
and others.
not everyone that's been incarcerated is a rapist or a child molester or a murderer, or, I mean, there's a lot of things you go in for, including just having a drug problem.
Right.
And you can come back out of it and you may be more reliable than some of the people my parents were just shooting and stripped us and walked away. Cause you just don't know. I mean, I've had people that, you check out, you do the background checks and they're still bad, so. Your circumstances.
nothing's
change,
perfect,
No.
yeah, nothing's perfect,
But nothing's.
but that's why you listen to your gut when you're talking to these people and you meet them in person and you say,
But it's like any business you get yourself into, there's risks and rewards, and you've got to balance that and go into it with your eyes wide open, Businesses will make a decision and then all of a sudden it goes sideways on them
Yeah.
and, we had a contract, a 50-page contract. It goes bad and it goes bad, and then there's other times that you can walk into something and say, oh boy, this is really risky, but it works, and the reward is better.
Yeah.
It just.
alrighty, I'm tired of talking, I'm gonna stop now. Is that
I
okay?
Stop.
It